Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. What's going up? Teens, friends, everything in between. We're gonna do some live D&D prep today. I had some other stuff that was on the docket. I was planning to do a stream of Kingdom Come Deliverance tomorrow, but I got an appointment scheduled for tomorrow, and so that kind of threw everything into whack. So instead, we're gonna spend this time helping me prep for D&D, which is good because I think for this session, I'm gonna need some help. So, is there anything else we need to really talk about before we get into it? I don't think so. We played some D&D over the weekend. Ran D&D on Friday. On Sunday we had a board games day because one of our dungeon master was on call, so we weren't able to play. And that was a lot of fun. And that's about it. Been working on a lot of other stuff, D&D related stuff in the background, doing this biomes and resources and getting prepared for our solo game. I think we're going to have our first session of the solo game on our Saturday stream if I can get all this stuff together, and depending on how I feel, I will be very honest that I have been feeling kind of worse and worse throughout the week. I assume that has to deal with the weather, because spring has sprung around here, and with that, it's been raining a ton, so it's holding all those allergens down to the ground, and I have had headaches and sneezing and just generally kind of feeling under the weather, but it all feels very hay fever, seasonal allergy adjacent. I don't think I'm coming down with anything particularly, getting the flu or anything. You know, fingers crossed. That's not what's happening. I think that's it. So, as far as it comes for the D&D prep, we're going to do a few things. We're going to recap the last session, or do our best. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to talk a little bit about time pressure scenario, about what's going on, how to clearly communicate that kind of information. That's really important for the players. We're going to determine essentially the most likely 3 to 5 encounters or scenes that we think that they're going to run into, primarily focusing on the beginning of the session, because once dice start rolling, we really don't have any control of where the session's going to go. And we're going to try to keep a balance of those things that we're going to try to get some combat in there, especially because we didn't have any combat last session. We'll talk about it. Try to have a little bit of exploration in there, investigation, and a little bit of social opportunities. Now, I do believe that the party is going to be splitting for this session, which is always a joy. Thank you, players. So we're going to split the party. They do this a lot. It's nothing new. I've been DMing for a while, so having them run in different directions, having my players run in different directions is not that big of a deal. The only thing that I like to remind them of is that, hey, if you go in 4 separate directions, that means that each of you is really only playing about 25% of our session, and you're watching about 75% of it. So keep that in mind. I don't care, because I'm in all 100% of it, so I get full enjoyment out of it. As far as you guys are disparate. If you guys get into trouble, you guys are on your own, which is not great. And that is something that I'm not going to sugarcoat. Like, if you guys get into trouble, you're going to get into trouble. Let's see. In addition to the sort of 3 to 5 encounters or scenes that we want to build up, we also want to build up look at maybe some travel hazards, some random encounters that might jump up, or any other sorts of complications, especially now that they have a very strict time pressure of the situation that they're looking at. So that is our plan. Let's go ahead and hop into it. Get out of here. I don't need you. Ha. Let me throw you guys over. Here we go. Alright. This is our session prep. It's going to be for session 31 of the campaign. As you can see, there's nothing on it yet. But first we want to do is we want to recap what happened in session 30. So let's hop over to the session 30. Besides that, guys. A little bit more. Alright. Actually, we can go a little bit larger. Is that too large? I think that'll be alright. I don't think we can hit 200 though. Too large. It's too big. Alright, so nope. What am I doing? Looking on the wrong thing. Here we go. 150. We can do 150. I don't think we'll put anything too far out there to the right. Anyways, we have a lot of margin. Alright, first thing. This session did not happen on 2/27. That was when it was originally scheduled, but we actually ended up having this on 6th. And we were missing Ash. Ash. We were going to play on, what was that, the 27th. What ended up happening is we were going to have one person who was out already. That was the player who does Caleb. But in addition to that, one of the other players was feeling under the weather. And so we got down to where we could have run with 2 because I knew that there wasn't going to be like combat or anything like that into it. So I asked them, said, hey, do you guys want to play? They were kind of milquetoast. They were kind of, they didn't really give me a strong indication one way or the other. So I just decided to go ahead and cancel it. So that way we could jump back in with everybody there, or almost everybody there. We did have Ash miss, which is okay, because I don't think having Ash in there would have made too much of a difference. I mean, they already have somebody who's wisdom based because Ash is a druid, so and we already have a cleric on the team, so it wouldn't have changed too much. I mean, I guess Ash could have provided some context about. No, actually they couldn't, because we've already expressed everything that Ash knows about the sort of illness that's going on that afflicts all these people. So, this is what happened. So we did that. I've got my paper notes that I have shoddily written down notes on. And this will be, we'll get there in just a second, but we'll understand why that's a problem here. So, as far as it comes down to our injuries, unfortunately Caleb is still sitting at 1d8, but Zarnok rolled well, and Zarnok is down to 1d4. That's our lingering injuries. That's one of the things that I implemented for this campaign, is like, hey, if you get knocked down to 0 hit points, you're probably going to take on a lingering injury. Not always, but generally, you're going to take on a lingering injury, because I wanted to make sure that, try to avoid some of the 5e 2024 problems of basically get knocked unconscious, pop up, get knocked unconscious, pop up, knocked unconscious, pop up, to have them be a little more proactive or defensive about the way that they engage with difficult situations, primarily combats. Or falling out of a tree, which is how we got the first one. Nobody changed on rations because we didn't need to check rations for the day. And yeah, that's everything on the first page. That's good. So now we're going to get into the second page. So I took some notes on my actual prep sheet, which is literally just the sheet that you're looking at on screen. But I usually take session notes in this nice little spiral book right here. I didn't in last session, and that was a mistake. Learn from my mistakes. So I didn't take notes on it, which means that my notes are haphazard and not super great. In addition to that, one of the things that I always try to talk about on the channel that's been very helpful for me as a dungeon master is to essentially try to create my own recap of the session as close to the end of the session as possible, when I have most of that knowledge in my head. I did not do that this week. I got home from the game, got talking to my partner about different stuff. Life happens, and I was like, it's late. I'll do it tomorrow. Woke up tomorrow, wasn't feeling great. Started doing other stuff, and was like, I'll do it on Sunday. Woke up on Sunday, started messing around on other stuff, kind of forgot about it. That in my mind, that's usually a thing that's already done. And then I had to run off to go play board games with my friends. And then, it's the new week. And so I didn't actually take a recap of the notes. So we have to go off of the scribble that I did during session on my prep sheet, which is unfortunately just mostly recording rolls that they did, which is not super useful for recapping notes, with not a lot of contextual. So we're based off of my knowledge, which is getting towards a week old, as well as having worked on a lot of other stuff since then, especially D&D stuff. So we will see how this goes. So what we're going to do, first off, is I'm going to take this stuff. Now that this has been updated, and actually I'm going to change that stuff back. There we go. And we're going to go over here. And we're going to drop this in here before we start messing around more with stuff. I'll go ahead and close it down there. That way we see a little bit more real estate. All right. So back to session 30. Oh, wait. So here, we're going to write this down here. So, we'll do a... Alright. So, interpret what I can do from my notes, which is not going to be great. So they had their talk with Parisa. We can go up and look at this. Alright, so fast feet, fleet speech. So the way they broke this up is that they knew that they had talked to Parisa, who was an NPC who was in service to Gazi Takisha, which is another NPC who is essentially a minor noble, a knight essentially on this island. They're like, hey, just letting you know, Gazi Takisha got your notice about the affliction while you guys were off getting Halmuth, and I was letting you know that she is mustering the troops to go take care of it. And of course they were like, what do you mean take care of it? It's like, oh, well, I mean, generally she's probably going to go there and they're going to massacre all those people and then they're probably going to burn all the bodies. And so the party was like, well, that's probably not good. We probably shouldn't let that happen. Like, okay, great. So Parisa kind of gave them some options of how I built out this last session, which is right here. Got a few different things. So basically, it's how do they want to approach reaching Gazi Takisha, and she is mustering her troops and marching on the refugee camp. So it depends. There's a chance that they can go straight. Essentially, it's two prongs. It's two little columns, gamuts, vertices, whatever you want to call it. There is the travel aspect and the social aspect. They're down here. There's travel aspect and the social aspect. So travel aspect is how fast can they get to Gazi Takisha to intercept her. Social aspect is the sooner they get to Gazi Takisha, as in the further she is from the refugee camp and her men are from the refugee camp, the easier they will be to persuade. And so I gave them essentially three choices. They can head straight to the refugee camp, which is the easiest way to get there. DC is incredibly low. It's a DC 3. They all just have to make that check. Very simple check for them to make with either a con save, or if they're training in athletics, they get what did I say, advantage? Or they can also roll advantage, either con saves or athletics. Very easy to get there, but they'll be difficult to talk to because they're going to be whipped up for a fight at that point. Because every time, as the closer they get, the more they're getting ready and amped up to get into a fight. You can try to intercept them on the road. There's a small chance that they would have missed Gazi Takisha. They would have missed her at the crossroads, and she's already passed through there with her men. So it's a small chance. It's only a DC 10, relatively easy. Again, it's a group check, so only most of the people need to pass. 2 of the 3 need to pass. Now the social goes, the DC goes down. So it goes from a 21 DC, which is really, really difficult, down to a 14 DC, which is pretty reasonable. So this is the most kind of reasonable middle of the road option. It's got the kind of the middle of the road DCs. And then you can go straight to the keep, which is actually the DC 14 con save. Not the hardest in the world, but people can fail that, especially our group, who they don't all have great con saves. But it is the easiest to speak to Gazi Takisha, and kind of depended on who's going to be there. So if we had run it the previous week, the one where I said 2 of the people had been out, they probably would have focused on this one. Both of those characters have pretty decent con saves. One of them's trained in athletics. They would probably be able to hit that DC 14. Especially because they would have had the druid with them, and the druid could have potentially wild shaped. And I would have allowed that so they could use the con score of whatever animal they wild shaped into as they run down the road. And because neither of them are particularly good at social situations, so they really want that lower social DC. But that was not the mixture of PCs that we had. We actually had our artificer with them, who actually has pretty good, or sorry, technically he's a warlock, right? No, an artificer. He just has a monkey on his back that is a demon. to an artificer who does have a pretty good charisma score and is trained in a lot of persuasion stuff. The only problem with that is that Gazatakisha in particular does not like that person. But they still could have probably done it. Could they have done the 21? That would have been tough. But they probably could have done this one pretty easily. They probably could have managed it. But what they ended up taking in the middle was they ended up going just straight down. I took the middle of the road option. Perfect. So they spoke with Parisa. The middle option for travel and social checks to stop Ghazi Keisha from securing refugee. There was also a hidden fourth option. Not really hidden. It was just the wild card option. They could go to alert Kishani Kirith or Bay Farah, who are two other nobles that are on the land. So the important thing to know about this situation, because this was a very, very dense political situation. So you have Ghazi Takisha, who is marching soldiers across other nobles' lands to get to this refugee camp. And so, including both of these nobles. And actually a third noble. So, they could, instead of trying to stop Ghazi Takisha, run and try to alert one of these nobles, who could then come back, and Parisa could try to delay Takisha as much as she could. If they did that, it was basically, both these people have higher status than Ghazi Takisha, and she's not going to be able to move against them. It's basically impossible. Unless I left the DC3 in the case, it'd be like, there is a chance that this could all really go bad, and this just turns into a big fight. But it is an absolute time gameable thing. It's like, you have to run in a different direction, so it's even less likely that you're going to run into her. Like, your timing really has to be spot on for that to happen. Because you have to reach and return from that third location. That was the setup. Despite what this looks like, this actually ended up taking me much longer to prep than I would have originally thought. It seems very easy when I'm looking at it now, but I just remember that it's like I had to come up with this stuff piece by piece as I was sitting here kind of like staring at a white page going, how's this going to work? And then trying to figure it out. So that was essentially the situation. That's what they decided to do. Kind of. Thing is that they also did do the wildcard option. In addition to this. So, before leaving the Plain Speak, which was the tavern in the boater inn that they're at, as they're talking to Parisa, because Parisa was waiting for them at it. The group pays 15 gold to a local trader, borrow their cart for 2 days. This is important. The reason they did this is so they could slightly split up, and they could do that wildcard option and have a better opportunity to roll for that. Basically, they were getting advantage for it because they had a vehicle now. So it ended up that it was, who went where? Caleb, and Zarnok headed straight. Ghazi Takisha, Wayne, cart, and headed off. Who am I forgetting? Right, Ash was not there. That's who I'm forgetting. The person who wasn't there. That's who I'm forgetting. All right, so Swain took the card and headed off to Kishani Kira. So, like I said, they split up the party all the time. It's not that big of a deal. I was like, if they had gotten into trouble, it would have been a bigger deal. But in this particular circumstance, they were smart not to get into trouble. Almost. For a moment there, they kind of almost did, but they got out of it. So, here's what ended up happening. They kind of did both. So, if we go back up here at the top and be like, okay, they ran off. Alright, they, go this way. The pair passed their, I guess all. One. Passed the travel checks. We had good travel checks, including, I think, we got one natural 20, I believe. And one unnatural 20. So everyone passed the travel checks. Even ended up being a disadvantage check for the vehicle handling. I was going to allow them to have the speed, essentially, but none of them had vehicle handling. So I was like, all right, but you got to make a check for the vehicle because you're trying to ride a vehicle that you don't have experience with very, very quickly. But rolled well enough. Good. I think they hit the DC right on the head, if I remember correctly. So everyone passed travel checks. Caleb and Caleb attempts to go to Keisha, but fails. And he tried to kind of do it in front. So they found the file of soldiers that were moving in. I think I said there were about a dozen or so. So was up to Keisha, tried to dissuade Keisha. Keisha wasn't having it. Zarnok stayed out of that because Zarnok's not a super great talker. Being the big Dragonborn fighter, he's more of a smash kind of guy. So anyways, he kind of made his way to the back of the file. And he was able to intimidate soldiers. Be run off. Play to join the Grey Wolf. So the Grey Wolves is a mercenary company that Zarnok is actually a part of. And Zarnok did some good rolls and was able to scare off 3 of them. We think, or at least he thinks, that is the direction they have ran off to. It's like, hey, you guys can make a lot more money. You know, maybe not slaughtering just like random sick people under Gaza Takesha's orders and make some good money while you're doing it. And so they were able to sort of take that hint and run off. At least I think it was an intimidate check. We'll say dissuade, because I can't remember. With the fighter, I think intimidation is the only thing that only charisma thing that Zarnok is in fact trained in. I think. This is why you should write your notes. Why I should write my notes. So, they weren't able to convince Takesha originally, so fails, and the file continues marching forward. So Zarnok, like I said, went to the back, and so he was talking to people in the back. And at that point, it is makes it to Kirith and informs him of the situation, and the 2 take mounts and free off. Interrupt. I'm gonna say fresh mounts. I'm gonna put a note in here because I think when they do that, I think they technically left the cart there. This is the part where I should have made a note of that, and I didn't. Actually, I think what happens here is, again, I'm interpreting very, very loose notes. So I think what happened here, now that I'm looking at this extra note, that essentially what happens is I'm going to cut this and say Caleb Zarnock. Swain makes there and is able to and again, Swain is our big charisma character, and he no problems persuading Kishani Kirith. Kishani, by the way, is a religious title. Kirith is a priest, a landowning, like a noble priest. And Ghazi is a knight, but it's more like, it's almost like a Templar. They're in a caliphate, so everything's very religiously focused as far as like religion and government are the same thing for most of it. So, again, gives Kishani that's very accurate, that specific powers, like if he shows up and confronts Ghazi Takisha, and Ghazi Takisha's not on her land, she's kind of, there's not a lot politically she can do. The best sort of situation with that is she kind of has to put her tail between her legs and go home. So, the duo continue working to stop Nisha, and that, if I remember correctly, is when Zarnock dissuades that, and then Caleb and Knight on for violence. So the Knight's one is one of the deities in this world. Caleb is their cleric, so he does a lot of praying. I definitely run a game where it's very, right now it's, especially this campaign, has been extremely religious focused because they are in a caliphate that, like I said, has a very, religion and government are the same thing in here. In addition to that, having a cleric who's leaning into the gods and the pantheons of the world, which is always fun. Because some people treat clerics, or specifically clerics, paladins to a lesser extent, but specifically clerics as just a different flavor of a caster, like a different kind of wizard. You're like, no, this is like, you can reach out to your god, you make payments, sacrifices, you speak with other clergy, and you have things that you have to do, and ceremony, and all that stuff. So it's very fun having a player who's leaning into those aspects. And so sometimes they just go, hey, can I pray the gods? Because gods are a very real part of this world, but unlike a lot of D&D or other pantheons, like they're not necessarily just like big sky people. They're like, no, they're kind of these weird, inhuman forces for the most part. Take the Night Swan, who is essentially, that their aspect is a big swan that hangs around. And is in charge of very specific things. They're more of a pastoral kind of deity. Interesting. But anyways, praise that for advantage versus violence. Advantage on rolls. I should clarify that. Advantage on rolls. On a roll to stop violence from occurring. That was it. So I was kind of jumping back and forth between them because that's what you got to do when the party splits up. And then I believe that's when Swain shows up. Yep. Swain shows up with Spirit, and there's a bit of a stalemate. Because they're getting closer to the refugee camp now. Which means things are getting a little bit harder to dissuade them, because a lot of the soldiers are getting sort of like revved up for fight. After that, there's a little bit of back and forth, but I don't think there's anything specifically mechanically that really happens during the time. I think there's a lot of talking, arguing about what to do, essentially. And argues about what to do concerning the afflicted camp and the illness that is now spreading. And kind of the PCs don't have a lot to show for their efforts. It's only been like 3 days? I think it's only been 3 days. We can figure that out very quickly. It is... What day is it? Spring Mother 14. We take... down here. What was the last day of the festival? Tell me. So this has to be the yeah, so this has to be the 4th day. This is the 4th day. Oop. All right. This day since the incident at the festival. But they do have Halimeth, who is the wise man of the mountain, who has come to, that they have grabbed and brought with them to basically be their assistant. But they do have Halimeth Into, who's with them. I should make that. Her for 2 days, Caleb and Zarna. That's so. I think that was the 3rd person I was thinking. I was like, somebody else went, right? Yes, Halimeth went with them. Too. Great to me. Halimeth, not the biggest talker in the world. So he was kind of, mostly silent for this session. He's just kind of around. He's a hermit, pretty much, so his conversation skills are not the greatest in the world. So, group is able to, what I should say is, dust is rising behind column of Takesha's troops. As essentially they delayed it long enough that I knew that there was a chance if they were able to at least delay Yazi Takesha long enough, which they were able to do, even if they weren't able to succeed, that Ghazi Fazil was going to show up. Go up. So things that we need to know. So they past marched after seeing Keisha pass my throat. With armed troops. With armed troops. And so bringing back, because I was like, so the throat is a very specific place, which comes up in like session, gosh, like 2. No, maybe session 4. I don't know. 4. Oh, maybe doing that. Maybe this is just. And anyways, it's been a while. That's actually not important. I was just like, this is just. It's a callback to something that happened very, very, very early in the campaign. Or the location, anyways. We'll do in the recap. Come here. And NPC they haven't met. They bypassed the throat and the and so for context. So we're bringing back an old location, an NPC they haven't met, which is Ghazi Fazil. So they bypassed on their original move into Poly into Poly City, or Poly Town, I guess. They bypassed an area called the Throat, and they've been by the Throat one other time. And actually, a few times. So the Throat is actually, everything's on an island in the campaign so far, and the Throat is kind of what is the gate between the southern part of the island and the northern part of the island. And that is because to the west of this area and to the east of this area, there's pretty heavy jungle. And so there's really only this one area that that's cleared and allows for clear passage. It's only about 2 miles wide or something like that. So they've erected a watchtower there to sort of control the pass. The problem is that it's right in between Ghazi Takisha's land and right in between Ghazi Fazil's land. So they both trade off manning that watchtower. So very early on in the campaign, as they were making their way, they saw that they could have engaged with that. They decided not to engage with that very specific thing that was happening, as there was one group of soldiers outside yelling at the other group of soldiers within the watchtower that they were supposed to be switching out, that they were not doing it, and they were holding the watchtower longer than they should have. They decided not to engage with it, but now we see the other party who was engaged in that struggle, who they had not met previously. So, needless to say that Ghazi Fazil and Ghazi Takisha do not like each other. They are not friends. They are very much, I wouldn't say enemies. I'd say rivals is probably the correct word. I think I'd say rivals is the correct word that I would use for them. So they are rivals, kind of looking for an excuse to, if they could attack each other, they might do that. But they don't have an excuse to do that, at least not right now. So anyways, he shows up because she's marching armed troops through lands that are not hers. And so I knew if they were able to at least delay Takesha long enough, that Fazil was going to catch up with them, which is what happened. So, situation now being Fazil plus Kirith plus the PCs plus, we'll say, Farah, kind of implied. It was another noble that's on the island, which is, their land is actually where the refugee camp is. Nazi Takesha. No, she can't force her way through. Delivers an ultimatum to the PCs and agrees they have 2 days, 2 full days. So at the end of today, 2 more days to show significant progress to dealing with the contagion, or she will essentially march again. Yeah. This is actually really important because now she has 2 noble witnesses. Phil and Grith, noble witnesses to this agreement. The players agree. They wanted to push, I think, originally for 5 days, and I think they kind of agreed on 2 days. Let's see. And that's pretty much the end of the session. So the session was a lot of talking. That was most of this. Oh, hey, how are you doing? No, this is not for solo play. This is actually the campaign that I'm running for friends. To recap the last session, we're about to jump in to prep for next session. Coming up in a couple days. Let's see. 2 days. Still shows up. And then a. Do it this way. Kazi Takesha turns the column and heads home. Alright, the group makes their plans for next session. Hey, how you doing? They're gonna split the party. Of course they are. They're gonna split. Because of course they're gonna split the party. The idea here, and this is where I scribbled something out at the end, and these notes I'm trying to interpret as best I can, because my handwriting got real sloppy there as I was trying to like knock this out as we were closing up the session. So Ash and Zarnok are headed to, sorry, I should say, well, let's do it this way. Ash and Zarnok are taking Helmuth to the refugee camp. Well, Caleb and Swain are heading to Fair. And you pay Farah for info and essentially permission to act within her lands. This was towards the end. The Kashani Kirith was essentially like, hey, by the way, you should probably meet with Bayfera at this point because you guys are about to start doing stuff within her fief, within her domain. And if that would be nice to get her permission first before you start making any big swings or really messing stuff around. That is the plan. Even though in my notes I wrote down Daylin, which is not the right NPC. I have to admit, Farah. There's no reason that they would turn around and head in the other direction to go to Daylin. I can't imagine. So I think that I may have just written down that. I think I was thinking because we were talking about Daylin, about something else unrelated. Alright. That's a recap. That's done. Let's focus on what next session is going to look like. Over here. Ha. Ha. Alright. Here we go. So, this will be Friday the 13th. No. 1. Let's see. As of right now, still the same day. Everybody, as far as I know, is supposed to be here. And since it's the same day, nothing's changing there. We should change the weather. I'm going to throw you guys aside because I have to pull this up. Get over here. Up, up. I did not have my weather document pulled up. Go. Weather document. All right. Alright. So I have a little weather hex document. I just need to roll a D8. I rolled an 8, which I think means that it's gonna stay exactly the same. That is indeed what it means. So we actually don't need to do this because the weather has been like this for a little bit. So what I like to do when I'm prepping this, I like to showcase kind of the weather that's going on. Especially because the weather can actually have important things that happen mechanically within D&D. In this case, temperature is rather average for the spring. There's gusting winds, so the winds are still kind of a problem, so that provides half cover for any sort of against any sort of missiles from range combat. And there's still light rain that's coming down, which is going to give light obscurement, which is actually disadvantage on perception check. Sight-based perception checks, anyways. So usually what I try to do is I try to have one type of weather at the beginning of the session and one towards the end of the session, so that way I can show the weather actually transitioning during the session. But sometimes it's like this one, and you just roll the same thing. And so if you roll the same thing, the weather does not change. So for many hours it's been raining, and it's been a little windy. It's actually raining less than it was earlier. It was raining heavily, which meant heavy obscurement, which you can see right in this area below at our point of order and foreshadowing. I said the heavy rain's roar recedes to a soft patter as packs the last for gear. Shutters of the plane speak the common room, rattle against the bars, as gusts of wind try to throw them open. So that's all going to be the same. So, group decides split their efforts. Because I want to remind them that they need to go pick up the cart as well. Kashani Kira, you know what? Let's roll it. I think this is likely. We're going to do an oracle roll, which means we need to roll 11 or higher for a yes. Usually we try to phrase questions as being yes or no questions, with yes being the higher number. So I think Kashani Kirith kind of likes the PCs. They haven't done him any wrong. So I think it is likely that he can have somebody deliver that cart back to the group. Knowing that some of them are going to go to Bayfera, no, you know what? He'll have it delivered to the refugee camp because technically that's closer. Yeah, I think that's what he will do. All right. That's what makes sense for me. So, because I think it's likely we get a +3 to this roll, so we technically have to roll an 8. Right? Yeah. That's a natural 20. We'll make sure it's delivered. Alright. I just write a note for myself. So, like I said, I like to kind of create an intro sentence. It's just like a little bit of flavor text for myself to kind of like jump us into the session. I find that super useful. Not everybody does. I like to have like a sentence, maybe 2 sentences, the most kind of 3 sentences to be like, hey, this is a situation, this is kind of the overall vibe of what's going on. So, stand in the rain. We'll say stand against. Standing salute. And make part ways. And we'll say that Monarch. And technically they're all gonna kind of go to the same place. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure they're technically all gonna be walking along the same road. At that point, we'll just kind of jump forward. Yeah, because they went from the Plains Peak east. Means they went there. Yeah. So I need to do another oracle question for myself. But yeah, I mean, the road's going to go right past the refugee camp, either way. Well, I guess it won't really matter. Yeah. That won't matter as much. So we'll jump forward. That's one of the nice things that you can do as the DM is that you can control time. We're going to jump them forward a little bit rather than having them pick up directly where they are. And it's a rainy farewell. Kashani Kirith. Deliver back to the group. I said I wanted to jump ahead. That's not jumping ahead. Good. I'm gonna rewrite this sentence so many times. The group needs to split on the rainy road. Ash. Look, and Halamith. Head west. Refugee camp. Wow. And Swain. You. Trudging northward. Mud. Farah. And he said, deliver their cart to the camp. Mind you that they have day rental. You know what? I'll put that as a sub. So, reminder. Rental of cart back to Plain Speak, which again is kind of the tavern. Okay. Alright. Oh. They will. And a reminder here about the we do need to adjust stamina, which is not a thing that I was really paying attention to in the last session because I was already gonna have I already had quite a bit going on, so I didn't want to do that. Alright, so they had 1 movement, 2 movements. And I think this communicate documented this. I think. Yeah, this. They rested and then made the return trip. I think I gave them. Yes, that's fine. All right, so we'll say that's 2, 3. Yeah. I'm gonna roll 3 times. Oh no, that is not good. Never mind. I'll bounce that down to 2 because I don't want them to start off completely under the weather. 7's already pretty bad. So in addition to the lingering wounds, one of the things that we are keeping track of for the campaign is stamina. So this kind of tells, rather than tracking like hours, it kind of tells people like how much they can do in a day, because regardless of by measuring how much effort it does to do essentially a scene or move from one spot to another. So they're up to 11. So these are the thresholds down here, by the way, which is once they reach 12, Dwayne's going to have to start making active Constitution saving throws or start taking on points of exhaustion from moving around. And everybody else is at 14. So this is to tell them is that if the current stamina is at 11, you guys are well into the afternoon of the day at this point. Which makes sense because they rested in the morning, took the boats back to the Plain Speak, met with Parisa and talked with her, then ran off to meet Ghazi Takisha, and then have that whole thing. So it's very much into the afternoon at this point. And again, it doesn't mean that like once they hit 14 that they have to stop. It's just that every move they make after that, they have to make Constitution saving throws. If they fail those Constitution saving throws, they start taking points of exhaustion or levels of exhaustion. We're also using the 2014 exhaustion rules because they're fun and don't just do floating modifiers, which I don't like about the 2024 change. So it's the first one, you get disadvantage on ability checks. So if you're doing anything other than fighting, it's not great. Especially since they are about to go talk to political people and probably about to go investigate what's going on in the refugee camp, both of which are probably going to be pretty ability check intensive. So they're gonna have to figure out whether they want to stop for the day. Now the problem is like if they get to Bay Faras and ask for an audience, she may grant them the audience, and if she grants them the audience, then they're going to have to meet her in whatever condition they're in. In the refugee camp, they may or may not have a little bit more way. And then we'll don't need to check the Russians. We've already updated their injuries. Okay. We're gonna have a split. Now the great thing is that I had actually prepped a whole bunch of other stuff that was gonna happen. Oh right, I should put that in the recap. So one of the things that I did, come on. And well, the group level up. So you might have noticed that we're planning session 31 and they are just now getting level 3. And we do milestone progress, and I've been doing is essentially when you guys bring an adventure to a bookend, basically its natural conclusion, whether that is good and you guys did great, or is you guys didn't do so great and maybe failed, but that's okay because you brought that adventure to an end. This, however, is a much longer adventure than kind of the stuff they've been on up to this point. So it's taken a while, so technically they're kind of still right in the middle of the adventure. But they've made significant progress on it, and I wanted to reward them. But I was expecting them to do all this stuff, which is the Vegemin camp. So I've actually already prepped the Vegemin camp. Like I said, it took me a long time. I did a lot of prep for last session because I didn't know how long this part was going to take, because on the page it's like, that might not take very long. Like, it might take a long time, but there's also a chance that they could just roll really well and be like, they just breezed through it, and then I'm going to have to figure out what happens next. Well, we can just actually take this right here. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. We'll grab that stuff, and we'll just transpose that right over here. We have the Vegemin camp. In fact, I'll go ahead and add this. Go ahead and put this on the page for right now. So, that's one thing. The other thing that we have is we're going to have to do Bay Faras. We'll say audios. The nice thing is, again, don't have to do any of this stuff. So the rest of that's kind of already got over this. Obviously, this was prep thinking that Swain would be there, but I don't think Swain's going to be there. So some of the stuff will be interesting. Now, what I want to know is that they're still going to do a little bit of travel. So what I want to see is there anything that they might run into along the way? Now, I do have a map, and we could bring up the map, but I think it'll be just easy enough for me to use a printout of the map. This is not the right map. That's the world map. You fools! But I've done something with it. I took it out of its spot and didn't put it back in its spot. Alright. So, from where they are, I'm going to go ahead and bust them up to the point of where they take diverging. Or one's going to go one way and one's going to go the other. But I'll keep them there at that junction point just in case they decide to change their minds and they all want to go together. But I find that that will be unlikely. So we'll see if there's anything happening at the refugee camp. And then there's still 2 more. They may not make it. Actually, once I update their stamina with them at the beginning of the session, that might change what they decide to do. Knowing that, hey, you know, you got probably 2 more hours of marching through the mud and rain to get to Bay Faras. So, let's just roll. And we'll roll a d12 for everybody. A d12 for them. Okay, well, so that's going to happen to our friends. Which means they're going to get some sort of a side, so it's unlikely to be a combat. In addition to that, these guys also need to... Ooh, no, I rolled a 1, which means that there probably is going to be a combat encounter. Sorry, guys. Yes, what happens when you split up. So earlier in the campaign, I was having them roll for the encounters, which I don't mind. I actually prefer having them do that, but it does require me having to prep a bunch of random encounters beforehand, and I because they've gone off the island and done other stuff and come back, I don't necessarily have those. Nope. I think all the stuff that I did have planned. Actually, we can use this random encounter table. Except for that one won't make any sense. Probably not going to be giant wasps flying around while it's raining. Well, what area is this going to happen? Sometimes it's just easier, especially when they split up, to just not do the random things. I mean, they're still random because I'm rolling for them, but it's not random on their end. But they aren't necessarily scripted encounters or scenes. Okay. So. Alright, so that's in the plains. Their first one's going to be there in that town. Okay. So, I'm going to roll. What I like to do is I got a 1d20 table in here for sort of plains area. Just dressing stuff they can run into for that first group, because they're going to run into things. So 12 and 13. So, I like to roll twice, and then if it's something fun, I'll try to smush them together to make something interesting. If not, I'll just take whichever one I like better. Plains or scrub? Here we go, 12 and 13. So 12 is neutral man or monster encounter, and 13 is save versus lost. So I think we can put that together, as in that there's going to be some sort of neutral party they're going to come across who is lost. Doesn't know what they're going. All right, let's see. Ooh, very interesting. I believe trying to remember the chart off the top of my head, even though I've used it a billion times for our hex crawling. I believe that is a fiend. Okay. Some sort of lost fiend. So let's do this. Go to 5e tools real quick. Wasn't planning to have to do these interruptions, but that's okay. Actually means that there's less stuff that I actually have to prep. Will take them a little bit of time. And stuff always takes longer when you're having to jump back and forth. Basically doing 2 scenes for the price of 1. A good rule of thumb is that you need essentially 1 scene or encounter for about 45 minutes of game time. We're going to be playing at a game shop this week. Our usual place to play will not be available. Oh, you know what? That's why it's not available. I should update that. We in fact do not have everybody this. That's all right. So Zarnok's gonna be there. So it'll be up to, because there's only gonna be 3 of them there. We'll see if they decide to split the party. Now Ash and Halamith are very well. The Druid and the Wise Man of the Mountain can very easily handle the Vegapigby stuff. They are definitely the right people to send in that direction. And sending the Cleric and the Artificer to go do the politics stuff totally makes sense. So it's really just if you want to get caught in a fight by yourself. Though, in this case, it's probably not going to be a fight. Let's look at some monsters. Alright, so we need some fiends. Correct. I believe this is under. Yeah, shift it under humanoid because it comes up too often. Under both or under artificial. Own weird DM inner speech. Don't worry about it. Alright, so we're gonna say we're gonna keep them within the band, so only up to like CR4. What do we got? What do we got? Let's get something fun. So we got some sort of fiend that's lost wretches. Cacklers. Small fiends. Oh, so Hogwind are technically fiends now in the 2024 change. As are gnolls. Because I think they were previously both monstrosities. Or Hogwind might end they're humanoids. Use the old Demogorgon spawn. No, I don't think we'll be. This is gonna be like a. Oh, Jackaware's a good one. Jackawares are very. Or at least they used to be. Let's see if they changed them a lot. Yeah, the 2014 Jackawares are pretty nasty. They have some bad spells. And they're very low ZR. Now, I told them when we started this campaign that we were going to essentially, I'm always going to do, that if you guys split the party, I'm still balancing combats as if everybody's there. So, unfortunately, there's going to be like 2 of them, but it's going to be for balance for 4 people. Not great, I know. Sorry guys, don't split the party. That's just one. It's great, no problems with it, but it does make things way more dangerous. So we need a. I need the. Yeah, not the 2104, the 2014. I mean, you can do that too, but because I don't like the 2024 encounter building changes, because I find it that I kill parties way too easily using it. And it doesn't no longer uses the multiplier for multiple monsters. You can very easily create combats that have like a dozen or more monsters in it, and that will absolutely overwhelm the party because of action economy is how we know that D&D 5e 2024 works. That whoever has better action economy tends to win combat. So then taking out the multiplier for multiple monsters then really makes monster encounters really difficult if you're not paying attention. Which I wasn't at the beginning of this campaign, because I didn't know that the encounter builder I was using had changed over to 2024 rules, and so I almost TPK'd them. And I was like, this should not have been a hard encounter. Oh, that's why. That's why. I think one. Yeah, this one lets us switch between 2014 and 2024, which I really appreciate. So there's going to be their 3rd level. And we have... I do wish they had the CRs in order, though. I don't like. Doesn't matter, we're not looking for the right thing, we're just looking for something that's CR 1/2. Come on, show me a CR 1/2. Anytime. There you go. Okay. Too easy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. They basically ramp it up to about as hard as it's gonna get, which is about 6 of them. Yeah, 6 of these guys are absolutely gonna murder a party. 3rd level, party of 3rd level characters. That's the 2014 rules. Now, if we jump over to the 2024 rules, we got 6 in the bank. Again, these guys are 3rd level now. CR 1/2, 1/4, or half. Not 1/8. 1/2. There we go. We need there. So according to the new math, a hard difficulty fight is 16 black bears. That's insane. Even 6 jackal wares. Tough. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 6 jackal wares. Alright. So we'll put these down here. And to the... Lost. Say there. Neutral. Lost. What do we think they're looking for? You know, because I don't have a good answer, let's roll for an answer. How about that? 2, 1, 2. Do I have the thing? Have I moved it? I have moved it. That's not as useful for us. Let me... So this is... Sorry, I know you can't see it. Solo dark prompts. So 25 and a 54. 25. What are they doing here? They're trying to consume. That's not great. Spirit. Ooh, I like that. Alright, so they're here to consume a spirit. Now, they are demons. So I think that they're calling due somebody who sold their soul. And we'll say who has lost their soul. Now, they're probably not going to tell random people that. So I think what they're going to look for is I'm going to look at a point of interest that's on this map, and I have one in mind. It is here. But the problem is that they don't know where that is. So for them to be marginally helpful at all. Oh, I know where I can send them. They can ask for directions to the Maker's Temple. Yes, they have been past there. Then, so they're calling. So this is incorrect. Current. Yummy, yummy. Souls for our dummies. So yeah, they're here to find some sacrificed souls. Problem is they don't know exactly where they're supposed to go. They kind of ported in at the wrong place. You know, plane shift is a hell of a spell. Doesn't always put you in the right spot. So they are technically a few miles off. They need to go. Let's see. They're there. They wouldn't. They're about 4 hours away. But they can ask the PCs for help. Let's see. It seems like let's say some sort of assistance, or they'll provide. We'll say recompense, remuneration. Why use the fancy word? Provide a payment or directions. What would that be? Go for it. This is a weird encounter, so I'm going to give them a little extra roll up here on my treasure tables to see what they have that they can give over. This is something that they've come across a few times now in the adventures so far. That the group parties come across random people who aren't necessarily from this plane of existence. This is one of those times. You walk around long enough, you start seeing he's got a lot of multiverse stuff going on. Alright. So let's roll and have them have advantage on this. 17's pretty good. But I do like 2 as well. 2 is pocket contents, which means they could get something weird. Or they could just give them straight cash. I do like straight cash. Their cash is going to be different. That's fine. Let's see. Currency. What are we looking at? Ooh, natural 20, baby. Love to see it. Still pretty low, though. Just to see what it is. That's very funny. So something that's worth like 4 gold, which is not a lot of money. They have like a purse full of silver to give them. And let's see what they would have gotten went the other way. I may mulligan that, but what they get. They could give them directions to some place. No, I don't think they're going to give them food. Sorry, I'm looking at the map trying to decide. But they could potentially give them directions to. Would be interesting. No, I think I'm gonna go with my. Sometimes we roll the random stuff, and sometimes we go, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. Actually, I'm gonna go with the things that I thought of, which is generally a good rule of thumb. Is like if you're rolling for things and you have a spark of an idea, probably go with the spark of an idea. So they're gonna pay payment for. They're gonna actually put here. I'll pay soul coin. So the question is, are they disguised as just general humanoids, which is something a Jackaware can do, if I remember correctly. Shapeshift, Jackaware shapeshifts into medium human or medium jackal human. Specifically, not medium humanoid, specifically medium human. Yes, I like that, because that's going to make this bring a little more depth to this encounter, because there are not, as the party is well aware, and players are well aware, there are not humans on this island. Not really. They don't show up very often. So, if you run into half a dozen humans randomly, who the hell are these people and where do they come from? They might be shapeshifted demons. That does happen. We'll go with that. Fine. 6. No. We're gonna say nondescript humans. And then I'll just put the. So they're after yummy sacrifice souls for their tummies. And they're willing to pay 1 soul coin for this information. What is the exchange ratio from a soul coin to gold? I don't know. I probably would have to look into Avernus for Avernus. Or I'm sure there's an exchange rate. Couldn't tell you what it is. I'd have to look it up. It's probably not that important. I don't even know if they're going to take it if they recognize what it is. I'm gonna say large, strange coin, because they may not even know what that is. They might have to make a check for that. Which is gonna be a religion check, which neither of the people who are going here are gonna be very good at. Oopsie poopsie, don't split the party. Hopefully, they don't just decide to eat you if you piss them off. At which point, you're probably going to die. That would be an unfortunate way to end, for 2 of my player characters to end the campaign, but it happens. That's only if they really screw this up, because otherwise it's going to be neutral. If they find that they're demons, find out they're demons and decide to do something about it, not having their cleric with them, it's going to be difficult. Alright, and then unfortunately I rolled a combat encounter. So right now we're kind of at alright, so they're gonna split off, and we're immediately gonna have a potential interaction that could turn into combat, unlikely, but could turn into combat. Then we're gonna have another combat encounter. Then they're gonna get to the refugee camp and start doing all the illness stuff, which is all the stuff that we have prepped. That's all down here, so we don't have to mess with that this session. Which is a whole bunch of stuff that talks about how many Vegemen are there, which is our stand-in for Vegepygmies, and how the refugee camp is arranged, stuff that they can find in the refugees camp, things that might come up that they might find because there's other stuff that's going on, other places they can go from here to get more information about stuff, and then we have our audience with Bayfera, who's down here. So that should be it. So we can do this one, and then we can talk a little bit about what that information is going to be with Bayfera, and what that might entail. And that'll be it for our prep. So our prep's not taking that long. Honestly, probably would have taken less time if I didn't know if we didn't end up rolling straight up 2 random encounters. Okay, So they are going to have a combat encounter. This combat encounter is actually going to happen in hamlet that's on the roadway there. So it's likely to be people. Let's roll just in case. Oh no. Oh no. I'm going to roll again. I'm okay with this result, which is fiends again. It could be a real demon heavy, real demon heavy day. But let's roll again, just in case we get something else. Well, it's either demons or aberrations. Which one do we like better? So it could be more jackal wares. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the, you know, I'm gonna throw you guys over here. This would be super useful. Look at the island map. Do that. Alright, I'll look you guys back. Here we go. Alright, let's fit this up. So this is the island and stuff that's happening on it. The guys are right around here. We need to be in... They're technically going to be in this. Central Hex, Hamlet, population 1. That's all the notes that we have about that. Okay. That's okay. Because right at the bottom of the North Hex. Hex is Bayfar's Keep. Alright, so that's the Hamlet. Alright. We don't really have any extra information, so it's going to be in the Hamlet. You know what? This might help to use one of those round tables. Be like, hey, kind of what's going on here. That could give us some insight as to, you know, maybe what these people want and why it's involving RB. Alright, 5447. So the table that I'm using is the Oracle chart prompts from Solo Dark, which is Shadow Dark's solo fork, I guess. Official solo fork. You can get it for free, I think, from the Shadow Dark website. Download it. It's 16 pages. Just for resources for running solo. Sometimes I like to use as a dungeon master or game master when I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe this will give me some information. Help spur me some inspiration. Or conceal. Conceal thought. So somebody's planning to do something. What else is happening in the Texas nearby? What else we got nearby? Not really anything, honestly. What's over here to the west? Sorry. East, I can, the Polish Swamp, hills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, this is in the center hex. That's why. East them in here. That's pretty far away though. We can use what's probably going on down there. Yeah. Yeah, more likely to use that. Mm-hmm. Just north. I don't know. These are really kind of jumping out to me as to things that could be necessarily. Well, I mean, maybe the elementals. I'm trying to think. Are there any elemental? Well, we know it's gonna be aberrations, probably. It's either gonna be fiends or aberrations. Let's do that. Do the other way. Ooh, memory web. This seems like the sort of thing that. trying to conceal thoughts. Speed and climbs. That's real nasty looking. Alright, false appearance. If it's motionless at the start of time with advantage on initiative roll. It looks like... I'm guessing that it looks like spiderwebs. Construct uses plants and undead. Automatically succeed. This could be a fun thing that could roll somebody in with one of the other things that's kind of going on. We have some constructs that are in the area that have been alluded to also very early, relatively early in the campaign, or in the area. We could allude to that. I like that. Don't hate it. Or Psychic Grill. Goblin Side Commander. The Nathalgu? Alright. Makes one bite attack, 2 claws. Attacks extract brain. So many aberrations are just like, I'm gonna eat your brain. Actually, I really don't want anything that's got a bunch of spells because it's a pain in the butt to deal with as a DM. Serpent Maw, kind of demon. What kind of... where are we going to be at? Well, we're going to be in like sort of a jungly forest situation. Maybe that'll be helpful. Let's pick this. Not a lot of the monsters are always given like biomes or zones they show up in, so that's sometimes difficult, but it can be helpful. Knock it down when you're looking at a huge mass of them. So let's go down to habitat. We need forest. I don't really need the planers. Not swamp. I mean, it's swamp and marsh adjacent, but let's see what that gives us, first off. Oh, that gives us very few. Barghest. None of these are going to be... Choker. Choker's a real... if you really want like a low-level horror one, Choker's a really good enemy for that. They're able to... quickness. You can take an extra turn. They can squeeze through 4 inches, so they can squeeze through doors and stuff. They're nasty. They can got spider climb. They're very they can be very horrific if you want to theme them in that way and be very horror like. They chase after people. But most of these are just like gnolls. I'm not sure I want to do gnolls. I want to do... I mean, a Grick's okay. Grick also doesn't do any psychic stuff. So, alright, so that did not. So let's expand. We had coastal, and I'll go ahead and expand and say swamps could be in there. Those are both relatively close. We've got the Chol. Pretty nasty. Renaloth. Teleports. Layer action. Won't have a layer. Fear gaze, which is pretty cool. Yes, one of the following spells requiring no material components and using its intelligence spellcasting ability. Charm person. Darkness, detect magic, spell magic, gust of wind, control water. It's okay. It'd be better if this thing was in water, which it won't be. The Kuatoa monitor, and the bone whip, all that stuff. I mean, I do know that Sahagwin are in the area. But it has to be submerged every 4 hours, and it is pretty far. And it's probably not going to make sense. It's great. I do love Varkwheel. I've used them before. They're an old, weird D&D monster that don't get a ton of love. But I know it's going to be raining, and they fly, and technically they could fly through it, but it's not as fun. Our spawn grew. Confounding bite. Piercing damage the target must succeed on wisdom saving throw or attack rolls against it have advantage at the end of Aura of Shrieks. Disadvantage on saving throws as well as attack rolls against creatures other than the star spawn. Other than the star spawn? Oh. How is this helpful? This is a weird monster you've made. The Aura of Shrieks makes it harder to attack creatures other than the creature that's doing the shriek, which is already weird. But the confounding bite means that they'll have disadvantage on that save. That wasn't DC 10 save. But then I was misthinking that. They don't attack other people, they get attacked. Okay, I mean, so weird. I don't love it. This has done nothing for me. This was an entire waste of time. You want tea? No. Vampiric Mist is fun. Life Sense. Sunlight Hypersensitivity. Takes 10 radiant damage whenever it starts its turn to sunlight. This could be a fun one. Life Drain. You know what I could do? Is I could smash together that Vampiric Mist and the web. What is it, like Psychic Web or whatever the hell it's called? I could slap them together. That could be interesting. Oh, it cleared everything. That's not helpful. That's undead. Of course it is. No. We still got to keep the same types. It cleared everything. We didn't mean to clear everything. One to clear. We still need fiends. Still need aberrations. Aberrations. Fiends. Save. Thank you. What other filters do I have on? No, remove these filters. Alright, there we go. Yeah. Well, the memory web could have been cool. I could still do that. I can still basically make this. That's what I'm gonna do. I could still think the Nyogi do anything fun. And this was something I was looking for, Magically Charmed, because they were trying to hide those thoughts. Dolgaunt, Tentacle, Unarmed Strike, Vitality Train. Swimmers, those are Dark Body Abomination. Spending way too much time just picking out monsters. Tends to be how it goes. I just want it to be something fun. Gibberling. Incessant gibberish. They're probably not going to be concentrating on anything. They might, though. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this. So I'm going to kit bash the memory web, and then I'll take the vampiric mist, and I'm going to smush them together to make one monster out of it. Because the web stuff isn't as useful in the context, because this fight's probably going to be happening outside in this little hamlet. So I think that I like this. So yeah, that's what we're gonna go with. All right, so in the hamlet, the memory web, and how CR on this thing, like 3. Hey, it's 4. All right. I'm gonna say 4, and we're gonna say kit bash. Just make it extra weird. And what was the thing that they said they were going to steal thoughts, I believe. That took too much time. So there's just going to be a little bit more straightforward. They can go into it. This gives them the opportunity, if they deal with this creature successfully, which is unlikely, they should run away from it because they're not going to have their full party with them. But if they are able to deal with it, that gives them a leg up on dealing with Bayfera, because they will come across this before they get to Bayferas. All right. And let's go ahead. You know what? Now, should they decide to stick together, they'll probably end up only having to deal with this. I don't think that they'll end up having to deal with this. Which means if I don't use this prep, what I'll do is, like, as they turn around and head back that way, I'll be like, oh, there's something weird happening in this hamlet. And that encounter will have passed, and this memory web vampiric mist hybrid creature will have drained a number of people in the hamlet and killed them, probably, or made them do weird stuff. The Vegeman camp, we already have everything there. We have the audience with Bayfera. All right, so they're gonna come in there. I don't really need to make a whole bunch of stuff. They're gonna. She has keep. I could bring up the map. Let me throw you back to my shining face real quick. I'm going to throw up the actual map real quick, just in case. I'm definitely not giving them more than a CR4. That CR4 with only like 2 characters could kill her. They don't need to worry about doing the encounter building for it. I know that it's going to be a very deadly encounter for them if they decide to fight it. Which, as DM, one of the things that I will do is make sure that that is very clear, kind of above the table. It's like, you guys see this thing, you understand that this is a threat that's pretty much beyond your ken. What are you going to do? At which point they're either going to retreat and go back the other way, or they're going to try to run past it and keep going to Bayfera's. Either way, they're going to be low on that stamina. I'm hoping that they'll get to the area and then they'll be like, we're low on stamina, maybe we can find like an inn or something, someplace to stay in this hamlet. And then if they're staying in the hamlet, that makes the vampire mist memory web encounter a little bit more organic seeming, because it seems to be like this thing that's filtering in as fog through this light rain that's happening as the gusts of wind. And they'll be able to pick up as like, hey, that's weird that the wind's really gusting, but it doesn't seem to be moving this particular patch of mist or fog. In fact, it seems to be coming through you, and then you see it start to press through the seams around the windows and around the door and seeping its way inside towards you. At which point, hopefully they will get the idea. We should probably run. And then they'll get to make like some checks and stuff too. Alright, let's pull this up. Map. Opening the map. Go. We need this map. I want to see. I guess I should technically bust that down. What was the memory web? It was 4. The Vampiric Mist is CR3. And technically this Hamlet is an APL2. Is there something smaller that I could use? A Space Clown, perhaps. No. Sorry, go. Oh, Gibbering Mouthers, it's a good way to bring in something like that. Ooh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to do that. Yeah. I have changed my mind. I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at. That's okay. I mean, here. Here we go. I've decided that, because this place is only supposed to be APL2, which I forgot to look up because it wasn't on there. So, because this Hamlet's only APL2, I'm going to... oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong Hamlet. It doesn't matter. This Hamlet is also APL2. APL is obviously average party level, which is kind of tells you where to frame threats and challenges around. So I actually need to bust that down. So what I'm going to do, we're actually going to take this. We're going to go Gibbering Mouther, which is a CR2, which makes it a lot more appropriate. And now can be probably something that they can handle. Though actually I might... now this is something we can check. So Gibbering Mouther is CR2. So say we had an Awakened Tree. And we wanted it to be... that's a 22. Alright, there we go. So we need a CR2. We need that Black Bear again, right? Oh, Cruthical. And these guys are level 3. Yeah, so we can add some more in here. Oh! There can be 2. Which again will be a very, very difficult fight. They really shouldn't do that. But then it does give it a little extra play. Something else they can mess with. Can make it a little bit more interesting. Can try to like come in from different areas. So 2 Gibbering Mouthers. Especially with the Vampiric Mist, just to give them the ability to kind of like move around and get inside of places and make them a little bit more weird. I'm not really going to take probably any powers from the Vampiric Mist other than just the mist form. And then let the Gibbering Mouther be like this mist of vacant voices and weird intrusive thoughts and things like that. And so then the Gibbering Mouthers like things where it's like you basically have the confused condition when you're around it and like slip around people. I like it. That's why I put it in my game. All right. What I wanted to do is let's go back to the map. Yep, it's just keep. All right. Cool. Question. Is it a stone keep? If it's just a keep itself, I don't know. Maybe more of like a tower house situation. Let's roll. I think just 50-50. Yeah, okay. What is a stone keep? Not particularly important, it's just for describing it. Keep, might be... I think I'm just gonna make this like a tower house. If you don't know what that is, you can do a quick image search. Basically just a keep. But it's just kind of a house. like a mini keep almost. Because there's no bailey or anything around it. So they're gonna have to gain entry. That's gonna be some sort of check. Actually, you know what? What I could do, I think this is all gonna be pretty straightforward. So let's do a room. Ooh, we rolled very low. That's very good for the PCs. You guys are in extreme luck. If you are a player, stop watching this. What are you doing? You ruined this stuff for yourself. So this is going to be... So, actually, the DC... So this is something that I took from my CRPG. I've talked about this before. Many times, actually. Where you just kind of take one DC and you set it for whatever the scene is, and then all the checks are pretty much going to be that DC. Want to do an investigation check about this? DC 6. Want to do an insight check? DC 6. Want to make a persuasion check? DC 6. Now you can go up or down on the DC by adding or subtracting. 3 is a good number. Just to be like, the thing that you are talking about seems pretty difficult. So this is otherwise a very easy encounter. Now, obviously, if they ask for something very, very stupid that's unreasonable, then you don't make that a check. You go, no, that won't work. Or if they ask for something very, very simple, you go, yeah, that just happens. Need guard to gain entry. And I have Bayfara's information. Here, grab her. Yep. Bayfara's information. Description. And I'll actually drop that in. Oh. Meet with Bayfara. So we got some... This is where we have to start thinking about what are some things that are going to be important to our NPC. So, if we're thinking about our NPC, what are they interested in? I like to just do the straight up W questions. Who? What? When? Where? Why? Whoa. Which is just how, backwards. And just to make it consistent. So, who? Are you people? Why should I listen to you? They're basically kind of demanding an audience out of the blue. Like, this will be, like, proof. And we'll put this under what you're doing. Like, what do you want? Yeah, no, I guess we can put it under here. Do you have any proof? The why? Question mark? They'll be like, oh, well, Kashani Kiros. And it's like, great. Do you have any proof of that? You just said a person's name. Now I know that person. But did they send you with anything? Which the answer here is I don't think they have anything from Kashani Kira. So, and if they're not taking Wise Man Halamuth with them, they're just kind of random people. Now, this is the thing where they can convince her again by being like, have you heard the news of what happened at the festival? And be like, ah, yes, the festival. And she may be able to glean something about what she's kind of heard through the rumor mill about two of the people who showed up. Now, if all four of them were there, they would better be able to... that check DC would probably be lower. Because they are not all there, I'm probably going to raise the DC to 9 for that, which is still very low. Which means she will have very much heard about it, because this is all stuff that's regarding stuff that's on her land. What do you want? They're going to ask probably for permission to do stuff about that. Or her blessing to do stuff within their land. Is there any supplementary questions that she might have about this? So why should trust this? Yes, to you. Maybe that when is like the time frame of, we'll say, what's the operational time frame? How long are you going to be in my lands? What are you doing? So that way when people start asking me questions, I'll be able to answer them. So we'll try to ask more info about let's see, does ultimatum, which they're going to bring up, or essentially they're going to be like, why did you make an agreement that has to do with like in my domain? These are all just kind of talking points for me. I like this style. This is what I use to kind of create what this will be. And with just answering these sort of simple questions and then narratively what it spins out to, like kind of like improvising what it spins out to, it gives me an idea of like, who is this NPC? What are they looking for? What's important to them? Some random people are going to come knock on her door and be like, hey, we're going to deal with those refugees on your land, and be like, who are you? Why are you involved? Where? So sort of where operating is, if convinced, able to provide info about what's the place called? It's, nope, that's not what I'm looking for. No, it's not there. Where's that? Lavender Grove. Wrong. I've got too many tabs open too. Basic outline of, or basic history event. So she's able to give them sort of like a very rough, I'll say that, rough history of events. Or what I should say, rough timeline of events. She's got a lot of stuff. She is a very busy lady. There's a reason she was not at the festival. She's got a lot of stuff that's going really not great in her lands. And not necessarily a lot of ways to deal with it. She's got giants and elementals fighting. There's a kind of fae groups that are roaming around. Obviously, they're going to have this weird aberrations that are showing up, as well as they're about to have demons. There's a lot of stuff going on in her lands. And she's kind of like, well, when you got an entire tidal wave of things in your front yard, which one do you decide to deal with first? And while you do that, the other things get worse. So it's either you try to contain them all little by little, or you only focus on one and everything else gets worse. Starting, so we've got a rough timeline of events. The Benjamin, which is essentially, hey, the Benjamin were living here. Something happened. Of what it is, I don't know. Haven't had a chance to get anybody out to see about it. What I know is that all the stuff over there started to turn this very light purplish color. A lot of Vegemen started leaving. Basically, a bunch of refugees started flowing out of that area through the middle of my lands, and I met with, I assume their leader, met with Grinbark. Lynn knows, like, hey, there's this bit of land that nothing's really on right now. You can hang out here and set up a refugee camp for the moment. She probably has some knowledge of their sickness, but it was like, I have no idea what to do with that. And I got a dozen other things on my plate. Those people, refugees dying in camp, who are not my people, is a very low on my priority list of dealing with. Interested / helping. Here's a good question. Is she willing to offer payment? This seems like a thing that people could prove themselves on. Is she willing to, if they're able to prove themselves, start giving them other tasks on her lands, which she has a bunch of. I let them know when we were starting this campaign, hey, to let you know, there's like most of the adventure sites are like on the north part of the island, north of the throat. And you guys, but a lot of them are a little bit higher level because they were like level 1 at that point. So just letting you know, as you start to gain levels, you can start pushing out that way. Now, as they will be level 3, they can certainly start dealing with things that are in the northern part of the island, which have a lot more difficult things to deal with. Because she gets in, now she can start dealing with the giants that are in the area. She can start dealing with the Fae. She can start dealing with all the other stuff that's there. So she has a lot of work. Thing is, like, is she open to having adventurers do that work? I think that's probably extremely likely. She got a lot of shit that's going wrong. So +5 to this roll. Well, that's certainly an 11 or higher. So, are able to bring this acceptable solution. I have more tasks that could use your attention. And I think she'll be willing to pay them. We roll pretty high. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna roll on the table. There's 4 guys in the party. Let's see what I roll. I'm gonna roll some random stuff up here. Got little treasure tables here in my Dungeon Master's Guide. Yeah, I'm not gonna bring up the sheet for it. Could just be here for a second. All right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 back. You. All right. 8, 8. All right. 3 8s and an 18. Some cash and trade goods. So primarily trade goods. So she might be a little cash poor, which may be one of the reasons why this has been such a currency. Trade good. This is another thing that I do in my D&D games very often, that I try not to pay out tons of coinage. Just because D&D already has a very, very significant money problem where you give PCs money and they don't have anything to spend it on. Especially since 5e 2024 doesn't have really a magic item economy, so they don't really have anything to spend a lot of that money on outside of potions or scrolls. So I try not to give them a lot of stuff. I like to give them a lot of stuff. Oh, you know what? I should have rolled for a different schedule. Because she might not That's actually a very good thing. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna roll one roll. Oh, and I'm gonna say this is extremely unlikely. So -5 to the roll. So we're gonna have to roll a 16 or better. Roll a 16 or better. Essentially, she has the opportunity to give them what could potentially become a bastion. Like, I will give you a place. Okay, so no, stop rolling. All right, so no, that was a wild shot. We're good. I'm good with where we landed. All right, so we need a d20 for each. Ooh, but low. Ooh, not great. 1753. Those are all very low. 10, 20, 20, 10. That's not great. Those are bad rolls. This is for the die size that they're going to roll for. And we're going to do this roll again. And hopefully roll much better, please. I think it's kind of better. Silver, silver, copper, silver. Yeah, so low money. So, you know, very low on that. Unfortunately. It comes with the territory, though. That's just the style of game that it is. There are other ways. The characters are perfectly capable of getting their hands on money. They do a good job of it. It just requires a little outside of the box thinking, or a little, like, you have to do it on your own time kind of thing. So let's roll for our trade goods. 1, 2, 3. Hey, 20. Ooh, livestock armor. Okay. All right. 20 silver and tools is not much. So, yeah, you know what? I might bump this up just a little bit. There are potentially other people who might also pay them for this job. This isn't the only person. They already took the assignment, so this isn't the only person they could potentially get money. I'll say that. Yeah. I'll roll that up. 5 silver. I was gonna say 20 silver. I was gonna say 5 per. Use the full amount. Tools. Question. You know what? I don't have to do that. I've got my stupid thing open. I believe there's... I should have rolled. That'd be very interesting. That would be glassblower tools. But I don't think there's anybody in our party who has glassblowing. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's not. That's okay. We can do this. Let's determine what it is. We'll round up. Why not? 20 silver. Sure. This will be something that Swain can use. Very cool. Livestock. Very interesting. Now I do have the table for livestock. Yeah, we're gonna pay them in livestock. Trade goods. We got 17 coppers worth. Not gonna be a lot. Yeah, that's pretty high. Well, this is a silver's worth. No, this is copper's, right? Copper. Which means it can only be one type of livestock. Which is very funny. Sure. We'll round down slightly. And they can get a half dozen chickens. 6 chickens. Just technically 14, but I think 6 chickens is a little bit easier to manage than 8. And our trade goods. So 20 silver, arms and armor. So probably not anything worthwhile. And I think the only person in my thing that uses any ammunition would be Swain. Though I think Zarnok has javelin. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mulligan this, and by mulligan be like I'm going to do something else. Offers to, even though this is actually a much higher worth reward, one weapon. So what are they gonna do with 6 chickens? I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with 6 chickens. Probably nothing. Probably turn around and sell them. Or maybe the druid can figure out something weird to do with them. Or how they're gonna transpose it. And then I'm gonna put down here. Afterwards, actually no, he's going. Yeah, you know what? I'll do that. Kirith's man delivers rented cart. That's just a reminder. We can take care of that. Let's just say we had the Vegeman camp also has a DC on it. All right, so how? Going. Yeah, how do you plan to deal? And you know, what is your plan? We'll say, what is your contingency plan? Contingency plan. So I'm gonna actually move this up. Grab that, and we're gonna drop this down. Boom, boom, boom. That. Now let's try to do. Good God. There we go. All right. Yeah, this should be just about everything that I need for next time. It's not gonna be a lot. Actually, you know what? There's. Don't want to do that right now. No, I'll save that for when I'm working on this, which will probably be tomorrow. Break, we'll just page break it so there's stuff's on 2 pages. And that'll be it. So, that gives us 4 different things. That's more than enough going to fill our time, probably. And we are going to be playing at the game store. We have a rented room at the game store, which means we have specifically 4 hours to prep for. And the likelihood is that we won't start on time, and there will be some talk in the middle. This is roughly 3 hours of content. It'll take even longer because they're going to split up in the middle of it. That always makes things take much longer. But they're going to try to go to the refugee camp. They're going to have issues down in here. They're going to talk to these totally nondescript humans. If they do, they can get something out of it. Again, one of those reasons why I don't necessarily feel, even though their rewards from adventures might be bad, I have no idea what this large, strange coin is going to be worth. Probably more than the rest of what they're actually going to get paid, minus the silvering. Because I believe silvering in 5e 2024 is 50 gold to get it done to a single item. So that's actually the bulk of their payment. And they can decide amongst themselves. I tried to vary it up so it might be something different people are interested in. So Swain will be interested in alchemical tinctures. The money and the chickens are kind of up for grabs. Who knows? Caleb might take the chickens and donate them to a temple or something. Or sacrifice them, maybe. Who knows? He might sacrifice them to the cat or something. And somebody's gonna get one of those weapons silvered that will probably be Zarnok. Probably. Even though he already has the Pulaski, which is already a magical axe. He's already got that, so maybe one of the other ones. And nobody else really uses a weapon all that much. Caleb might get it silvered. That'd be super useful for fighting undead and stuff like that. I think he has mace silvered. Or the druid could get something silvered, or Dwayne could decide to get some of his ammunition silvered. If he wanted to, but it's unlikely. I think that he will probably want the alchemical tinctures. And those might be helpful for him. He is in the process of building a firearm from scratch. So this will be things that will help him in the game. And then they'll have 20 silver to basically split if they want to split. Or maybe just one person will take that because everybody else is good. But here's the thing is, this is how I run my games. It's if Caleb, who's our cleric, decided to take the chickens and donate them to the temple might give him a better boon than the 12 copper these chickens are worth. Or sacrificing them might grant a much better boon than what the cost of those things are. It's kind of what they decide to do with the rewards and how they choose to implement them. It's actually a lot more important. And the 20 silver is going to get them, a few good meals. Some good meals and drinks out of it. Probably not going to get them a place to stay, but should give them plenty of stuff. So, we're going to have people hop off. They're going to split. They might decide not to split at this point. If they decide not to split at this point, we're going to lose some of this stuff. They're going to decide either to go straight to the Vegeman camp, which they'll probably have to because they have to drop off the NPC Wise Man Helmuth so they can start looking at this stuff. Who will have the ability to start taking a look at the Vegeman and try to figure out what's wrong with them. Ideally, with Ash's help or Caleb's help. One who is trained in medicine, one who's trained in nature, who can really... Ash might be trained in medicine too. Regardless, they can jump in and help out with that if they decide to go that way, so they might stick around there for a long time. And if that happens, then Kyrus Man's going to deliver that rented nut card, and remind them that they're coming towards the end of the day. So I'll keep a point on that for their stamina. So at some point, probably during the session, they're going to decide to bed down for the night. At which point, we'll move on to the next day. Which will be the same week, so we don't need to worry about that. Then they'll have to make their rations check as usual, and they'll go from there. If they decide to continue split up, one of them's going to go north. They're going to hit this hamlet, and they're going to have to deal with this gibbering mouther situation. If they don't, and they decide to stay together and then go later, they're going to see whatever the aftermath of whatever this was is going to happen, which I'll probably improvise on the spot. I'll probably be like, there's a lot of people, there are a bunch of dead people, and then there are some people who are just kind of like wandering around aimlessly, almost thoughtlessly, if they've had their minds scrambled, all that fun stuff. And then they'll get their audience with Bayfera, and she'll have all the things that she wants to talk about. They'll have to get into there first, which, again, sometimes we say, as we like to say, you don't want to gate forward progression necessarily behind a skill check. So they're going to have a meeting with Bayfera. It's just, if they aren't able to persuade the guard to get them entry, and they have to make a stink about it, basically this entire DC for everything else that's going to happen with this audience is going to go up. Which might mean I might just re-roll it, I might roll dice and add to it. We'll see. That gives us an idea about that. But yeah, that'll be the planned session. I'll pull a few stat blocks and throw that stuff together, but that's all stuff we don't need to go over on stream. That's just me. I gotta kit bash this gibbering Malther and vampiric mist together to make their own little custom creature. That's probably going to be the only combat that happens, though, in this, unless they decide to get into the fight with the Jackalware, so I should get the Jackalware stats up as well. I'll give myself some brief notes about, like, the battlefield I expect that to happen upon. And so if that happens, kind of what the layout is. Generally, this is one of the things that I do if the party splits up like they're intending to do. If they split up, I will let some of the other PCs who are not actually in the scene roll for the bad guys, so you can hurt your own friends. Yay! Isn't that great? Everybody loves it. So that way they're at least kind of engaged when there's a combat that's going on. Especially because it's hard to jump back and forth if both parties aren't in combat, where you can just make a standard initial list that covers 2 fights. If one party's in combat and one's not, I try to get the other guys involved in some way. I've had them play the NPCs in the scene. I've had them... so I might let one of them play Halamith, even though Halamith's for sure not a combatant. And he's still roughed up. And he's only slept once since he has been essentially tortured when they found him and rescued him. But yeah, that's pretty much done. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. This is fun. Always fun. It's nice to talk this stuff out. And I always think it's useful when you're able to see another Dungeon Master or Game Master, see how they preps live, so you can get an idea of like things you want to pick and choose, or things you look at stuff that I did and you're like, oh, well, I definitely don't do that, and I definitely would not find that useful. I think it's helpful to kind of like, cherry pick from different people and see how they do stuff, things you want to try, things you want to change about your own prep, or things that you find that other DMs or GMs find important to prep, and things that they're like, I can just improvise that on the fly. I don't need super detailed notes about it. Very nice. That golden rule of prep is always prep the things that you're not prepared to improvise. With this, I have just a kind of a general layout. It's like, okay, they're going to split up. If they go this way, they're going to run into these 2 things. If they go this way, they're going to run into these 2 things. If they decide to not split up, they're basically going to come across essentially those 4 things still in serial order instead. Except the only thing that's really going to change is going to be the gibbering Malther encounter, because they'll probably be dealing with the aftermath of that. Or it will be... because they're probably going to sleep. If they sleep, they're definitely going to deal with the aftermath of it. If they decide to go there first, they're going to deal with that first, and they'll miss the Jackalwares completely, who might wander off in some direction. They'll have to figure out whichever direction they wander off in. Hopefully not into the refugee camp, because then we're going to have a totally different problem. I'll probably roll for that live just to throw a monkey wrench in the whole situation. Just to make sure there's plenty of chaos. But that's going to be it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. If you want to see us get ready to do our solo RPG, so if you want to see how stuff like this plays out, or see how I improvise when I have not a lot prepped, you can see we're just about to start our first session, probably this Saturday. So you can come check it out on Twitch or on YouTube. We'll be streaming on both. So check that out. It'll be fun. Otherwise, if you like this content, give it a like and leave a comment. That's always fun. Things that you like to prep, or things you like to improvise. Do you kit bash monsters like I do, or you take 2 monsters, you might push them together to make what seems like a more appropriate monster in your mind? I find that a very useful way to make monsters rather than just making a full from scratch monster. Or doing reskinning. Thing's fun too. See, anything else? I think that's it. Hopefully you guys had fun. Hopefully this was useful for you. And I'll see you guys next time. Alright? Bye.